Okay, once the sprint track has been set up, we've got two key pieces of equipment we need. These here we call landmines. They're the bases of the sprint gates. And secondly, we have the sprint gates here, which are all individually numbered in pairs from 1A and B through to 7A and B. Yep. So the first consideration we need to make is which direction is the sun coming from in relation to where we're going to be filming the finishes of the sprint races. So today the sun is slightly to my right, which means that when we go to place our landmines, we're going to place them so that the arrow is in the direction of the sun. When the landmine's placed, it's placed on the intersection of the lane rope and the finish rope in the direction of the sun. Alright, once the bases are correctly in place and in line, we then move to inserting the finish gates. The finish gates come in pairs, 1A and 1B, 2A, 2A and 2B, etc. We start off with the gates in numerical order, and we start at the end that the sun is coming from. So we'll take these two gates down to the other end. Each of the gates has a small notch in the base plate. In the base, sorry. That fits into the groove in the base plate. To ensure that the notch correctly fits into the base plate, it's often better to just offset the pole and then rotate while applying some downward pressure until it clicks into place. All our posts are inserted into the base plates. We then come along and check the line of the poles, and as you can see, while the base plates are in line, the tops of the poles aren't. And that's because the bases are tilted in different directions. So once all the poles are inserted, we go along and we adjust the base plates to bend or to tilt the gates into line with the finishing posts. So this first gate needs to come to my left. So I just gently place my foot on the base here until I get the signal that that's all okay. Next one. Once we've done the adjustments to the base, we come back and check the line of the gates. The closer that the gates are to alignment, the more accurate the finishing will be able to be judged. The third piece of kit we need for the starting gate system is the Surface Pro tablet here. On the top left hand corner there's a button, just reach over the back and turn that on. Swipe up until you requested to insert the password and then enter SLSNZ 1910. When you reach the start screen, click on the surface and then double click on RHQ, which is Race HQ. Right, let's close that window. Okay, now you can see that in the bottom left here, gate 1 is set up nearest the sun, so the arrows on the base blocks are all facing the same way. So what we're going to do is start gate 1 here. Okay, to turn the gates on, press the red button until you hear the single beep, then release it. Once you hear a second beep, the green light will have come on and there should be a green tick above the gate you've started. So let's go to the second gate. With the second gate, now that the two gates are connected, there'll be 4 green bars. Now we can see that all 8 gates have a green tick above them and that the Go Racing icon in the top right corner is now a dark blue. We push that and all of the 8 gates will now come up. Now the yellow and green, the yellow boxes with the red cross indicate those gates are not successfully linked for some reason. So what we can do is simply step through the gate and back out again, and it links up the gates correctly. And we're now ready to start with all 8 gates giving us a green signal and an overriding green at the top. Indicates we're race ready. Okay, to check the gates, start by pushing the race button, ensuring the clock is underway, and then weave through the gates. When you get to the second to last gate, pass back through the gate. This will send off a second stop signal on that gate, which we'll look at shortly. Then pass through the last gate, and having done that, all 8 gates will have activated and the clock will automatically stop. Now, if we look at lane 7, which was the gate that we went through twice, it has an asterisk next to the number. That indicates that that gate was activated twice. So if I click on that number, it now gives me both times. The first activation at 14:04 seconds and the second activation at 17.5 seconds. This is important to note because gates can be activated twice during a race. There are 4 beams that need to be, 4 beams that can be activated. 2 must be activated within 2/100ths of a second of each other, any 2. So theoretically what can happen is that a competitor can come through and break one beam with their arm, another with their head, and then another 2 with their chest. That will create an asterisk. It then requires the chief judge to go and look at either the video footage or check with the judges to figure out which of those times applies to that lane. To save the race results, go to Select Event, select Beach Sprint, then Heat, Final or Semi-Final, the age group, and whether it's a mixed team, female or male. Once you've selected those, you can push the Save button. From then on, those settings will apply for all subsequent races. So make sure that when you change the age division or gender of the race, that you correctly select the division and gender before saving. Okay, it's important that before you start the gates that this green Wi-Fi signal here is illuminated. If it's red, the gates will not communicate with the tablet and you won't be able to race. If that icon is red, you need to shut the program down and restart the tablet, making sure that the USB connector and the connector in the back of the Wi-Fi box are secure. Other issues may occur from time to time, including a gate showing a red signal. If that occurs, then go to the reset gates. It'll come up with a prompt, confirm you do wish to. Now all the gates have turned blank. So we'll go back to the start and restart our gates in the correct sequence. Because we've pushed the reset button, the green light still remains on. So now we just press the red button and release it. We don't wait for the beep to come on, we simply push the red button on and off. Now that all 8 gates are showing a green tick, the Go Race button has become a dark shade of blue, indicating that we can now go racing. If one of the gates are out of alignment, you'll see a yellow box with a red cross in it, which indicates you need to check the gates for their alignment. In this case, it's this gate here, which has been rotated incorrectly. So put it back in alignment, and if necessary, tick the box, which prompts the gate to re-engage with the gates on either side. You'll hear a number of beeps indicating that all gates have now communicated with each other, and because we have a green box next to each of the lanes, we're ready to race again. In this instance, gate 5 is not aligned, and for this example, let's assume that this gate here is no longer operating for whatever reason. It could be that it's not communicating or the battery's gone dead. In this case, I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to go to the setup and say reset gates. Gives me a prompt. I'll go yes, all the arrows go green. I'm now going to remove that gate and replace it with another gate. Make sure they're in line. Start the gate. Reset the gates again. Then go back to gate 1. And again, the Go Race button is highlighted and all 8 gates are ready to go. This gate here with the red bar is just indicating there's light interference which has now been shifted. That could be the result of a cloud or somebody stepping in front of the gate. In this case, the camera is across the light bar top beam. Okay, so again, we're ready to go racing once we push the go race button and we have all 8 lanes ready to go again. To shut down the gates, simply go to the X on the top right corner. It'll prompt you to make sure you are wanting to close the gates down. Push yes. You'll then hear a range of beeps as the gates all automatically shut down, and all the green lights will then turn off. If any of the green lights don't turn off, you'll need to then manually turn them off by holding the red button until you hear 2 beeps, and then watch the green light go out. Okay, to pack the gates up, please be aware that these apertures are open to receiving sand and moisture. So it's really important you take care to not lie them down in the sand or the water at any time. Simply stand on the base and gently raise the pole out and then place it in the bag, making sure as you do that the green light here is switched off. Use of the iPad to judge races is an important development in surf lifesaving. It gives us some surety that the results we're giving out are the correct results. If you haven't previously used an iPad, make sure that you learn before you come to an event. Don't try and learn on the job, as it puts you under huge pressure which you won't need. The iPad should come in a waterproof, dustproof case to minimise the damage or potential damage to the iPad. Make sure you keep the iPad protected from the sun and the water and the sand wherever possible. Once you turn the iPad on here, you need to enter the password, which is 1910, the year that surf lifesaving commenced in New Zealand. Once you have logged in, you can then select the camera app. Once in the app, select the video mode, and then you're ready to video the finish. Position yourself correctly in relation to the finish. The eye of the camera is in the top left-hand corner in this situation. With our runners proceeding from left to right, we want to make sure that the eye of the camera is looking down the left-hand side of the poles and gates. If I video in this proximity, however, a metre from the orange pole casts a shadow which is almost 2 metres wide at the far end. So it's really important that you take the video a good 3 metres back from the pole. This will reduce the shadow effect of the orange pole. Ideally, it's better to replace the orange pole with a narrower pole, which will then reduce the shadow down the line. And now, in fact, the shadow created by the aluminium pole is less than the width of the finishing gates. It's ideal when filming is to keep an eye from the direction the runners are approaching, and then hit the start button when they're at least 30 metres from the finish line. and continue to film until the last competitor is beyond the finish line. Then hit the finish button and the file will automatically save. It's important to keep the iPad in landscape mode. If you have it in portrait mode, it limits the opportunity to capture people stumbling before, during or after the finish line. So make sure you have it in landscape mode to maximize what you capture at the finish line. It's always important to have at least one iPad at major events, if not all events. But better still, it's good to have one iPad on either side of the finish line. This is because when competitors finish close together, they may create a shadow from one competitor to the next. So we may only see the chest of the nearest competitor and not be able to see the chest of the competitor on the other side. So ideally, by having two cameras, and preferably in an elevated position, we'll be able to determine who finished ahead of whom in any event, particularly if the gates fail us, which is unusual. If possible, don't judge the race by looking through the screen. Video from below your eye height and use your eyes to gauge where the video camera should be, and also judge it external from the video camera. What we have demonstrated today is the exact same process for all finish of all events. Make sure that you have the two poles in line, and if necessary, adjust the poles to make sure that they are vertical, and ensure that the camera eye is on the correct side of the finishing poles. If you use the same procedure, being at least 3 meters from the pole here, you'll be able to capture and correctly judge finishes in all events, including ski events.